Welcome to the Impact Multiplier CEO podcast. If you're a chief executive, or if you think like one, and you want to create exponentially greater impact, then this show is for you. My name is Richard Medcalf, founder of X Quadrant. I coach some of the most successful and impressive CEOs and executive teams on the planet and help them achieve extraordinary results. And no matter how successful you've been in the past, there's always a whole new level of impact available to you. So if you're ready to play a bigger game than ever before, I invite you to join us and become an Impact Multiplier CEO.
Hi Richard, good afternoon.
Hi Stephanie, here we are again, ready for another exciting broadcast out to our 20 million subscribers.
Yeah, it's great to see everyone here listening to us talk about all these fantastic impact multipliers. I feel like I'm multiplying impact just by doing the podcast.
Well, apparently, so we've already got to planet Mars since last time we spoke, right? We've started to time travel, so we're doing pretty well, I think, already. But no, seriously, we're going to dive into the last multiplier in this episode, and it's a really important one as a CEO. How do you master transformation within the company? How do you create a systematic framework that everyone in the company can use to create the habits and behaviors that they need in themselves and in the teams? That's the topic. It just feels the missing element so much. Again, we're so focused on what do we need to do. We don't really give due consideration to quite how hard it's going to be to change our behaviors.
How do you make it stick? Making it stick is hard. It's really hard. I'm hoping you've got another magic bullet here, but I suspect it's not quite that simple. But I'm going to enjoy learning about learning some new strategies and some new ways of thinking about it, just to help me on my way and hopefully help our audience on their way.
Yeah, so it is hard. Adult, behavior change as an adult, is hard. And anyone who's tried to lose weight, give up smoking, take up sport, whatever it is, learn an instrument, all these things are hard to do. They're even harder to do in high pressure corporate contexts, with where you got time to think. Sometimes it's hard to do if they're leadership behaviors where it's not just about changing yourself, but it's actually getting other people to not realize that you've changed, so that they change their perception and they start to respond differently. Losing weight is kind of thing you can kind of do by yourself, but if people are demotivated because you've been micromanaging them, and you stop micromanaging, well, they might still feel that you are. They might still, because you're a micromanager, so they're depressed. They might not notice.
They might get confused.
Or they might get confused. So it becomes, so on a personal level in organizations, it can be hard. And then on a team level, how do you actually get whole teams to change the way they do things? Again, it can be, it's challenging. Yeah. But I think there are some approaches, and just let me give you an example. I was working with an executive who was pretty much on his way out. I mean, he was on his way out. The CEO had said, work with this person on my team. They've got some strengths, so I don't want to kind of write them off, but I'm really not sure they're going to be the right caliber for this new team I'm building. And which is interesting for me, because I often, a lot of my coaching work is what I call acceleration work. So it's like taking somebody who's doing really well and accelerate, multiply impact. This is slightly different, right? The stakes were higher, and it was slightly more remedial, right? Slightly more remedial in the way it's been positioned. Yeah. And this is one of my earliest remedial, I suppose, kind of assignment. So this is quite an interesting one. But I approached it with a bit of a the positive attitude, right? It was like, okay, this person is got to a high level.
Yeah.
They're already indicative. They've already shown that they know their subject, they know the company, they can create results. So they're not a low performer. Something's going on here.
Yeah.
And cut a long story short, we dug into it. We found the critical behaviors that were really undermining this person in this new setup. And we were able to laser focus on them and create a sustained behavior change in just a couple of months. And he's now the CEO's right-hand man, superstar. You know, the board above are like, this guy's incredible. It's just been an incredible, very satisfying success story. And I've seen this time and time again now being replicated. So I think there is actually a bit of a structure, which is what I use. So I'm going to share some of the elements that I find when you stack these elements together, you get a really good shot at making behavior change.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that because, you know, to my mind, what that story tells me is that the return on investment of effecting that kind of change is huge, much greater return than actually spending money on trying to find a brand new person who might not deliver everything that you need. You know, so the ability to transform, and not just in terms of people's, you know, your team's performance, but the ability to transform something, like not just, you know, educate, but transform, is a game changer. So
yeah, exactly. So it's you're normally not taking somebody who's like got nothing, no assets. Everyone's got loads of strengths, especially when you've got a reasonably high level. It's like, why would you throw all that away because suddenly they're labeled as not delivering? Get curious, like what's going on there? What's the, you know, what's the missing element? What's the missing part of the jigsaw here that's weakening everything else? And we can apply it to ourselves. If we want to get to another level, often conversations we're having with clients, it's like, yeah, well, what are the behaviors that I'm going to need if I want to step up my game? And then how do I do that? And what I find is that there are a few traps that we get caught into. The first one is setting vague objectives. So I want to be more strategic. I want to listen more, be more productive. I mean, that's just a dead end.
They sound great, but there's not much substance to them.
It's like, I want to lose weight. It's just like, if you want to, we need a game we can win. Listening more, you can never, you know, you can always listen more. I mean, you can always do more, you know, you can always be a better listener. And in fact, we're actually good at listening when we want to, all of us. So it's not just a question of listening more, it's perhaps listening more in very specific situations where we forget to listen.
Okay.
And it sounds obvious, yeah, you need a specific kind of objective, but the number of leaders, the number of teams, when I say, okay, based on what we've discussed, you know, what's your action, or what's your goal from this? And there've been insights, and they boil it down to some really vague statement like the ones I've just mentioned. Yeah, I need to be quiet. You know, I need to listen more. I need to speak up a bit more. Yeah, that'd be good. It's like, yeah, duh, you've known that for years. You haven't done it, right? Let's really get specific.
Yeah.
The second one is assuming insight is enough. We often believe if I understand, I will do. But that's not true, right? In the world of Google, you know, we can find out information. We don't necessarily do anything with it.
I understand that eating healthy is good for the health of my heart, but doesn't mean I'm going to stop eating cheese.
Yeah, exactly, right? So we eat a bit more than, you know, we carry around a few more pounds than we would like. We rehash the same old disputes with our loved ones. We, you know, we make New Year's resolutions and give up on them, abandon our diets, we cancel our gym subscriptions, you know, all this stuff. And there's this idea of the planner and the doer in us, right? The planner loves to plan and make bold goals and then hands over responsibility to the doer who gets out of bed in the next morning and has no intention of doing what the planner decided, right? The doer is lazy, just wants the easy option, wants self-gratification, and the planner then comes back a few hours later and is really fed up. So this is around, we expect that we'll resist temptation and that our enthusiasm won't dip.
Okay.
And that's where the planner-doer fallacy kicks in, because we assume that we're always going to be the planner being strategic about ourselves, but we're not. Our enthusiasm dips very quickly. We give in to temptation incredibly easily. A story of a friend who got to a hotel for a conference and saw a whole load of free kind of chocolates and goodies on the table, and said, "Oh, I'm going to call room service and get rid of these because I know I'll eat them." And said, sorry about the dock cracking there, was my phone going off. So he said, "Yeah, I'll get room service." And then he said, "No, hang on, I'm a powerful executive. I don't need room service. I'll just eat them. I'll put them under the bed, forget about them, and I just eat healthily like I always do. Put them under the bed, went downstairs, got himself a salad, whatever, and he was good." All until day 5, he was tired. He got back from the conference day 5. He was fed up. He was feeling a bit homesick, and he pulled out the goodies and he scoffed a lot of them. They were like boxes of Pringles. He just ate the whole of it, because we do give him to temptation. We just do, and our enthusiasm that the planner has set melts away easily.
Yeah, and we won't talk on to how to manage temptation until we're on to the ways forward. Let's finish because I've got loads of thoughts on that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Let's stick to. So hang on. Traps, what you're saying? The traps were vague objectives.
Vague objectives. Assuming that insight is enough.
And expecting you'll be able to resist temptation.
Exactly. Exactly. And the last one is rejecting help and structure. Okay. Because if we're high achievers, we kind of go, "I don't need help and structure to establish new habits." Like, I get it, I've got it, I've understood, I'm good. It's like a badge of honor. But let's face it, the corporate world is full of high achieving leaders who have kind of plateaued and are being held back by their long-standing tendencies and behavioral traits that they can't quite shake. And they've just become, "That's who I am." Yeah. And they're trying to get around that. But we do need structures in place to help us.
Yeah, yes, because I think transformation is hard, because it's not just about understanding where you need to get to, but it's also overcoming all the bad habits and all the things that you do without thinking, and consciously making changes so that those transformations can happen. And not just in terms of transforming yourself, but affecting transformative change in an organization or whatever. So those traps, they all ring true, because they're actually the easy way to behave. They're it's the unconscious, I don't even have to think about way of behavior. Yeah. Active thinking and active behavior consumes energy, mind space. Yeah. And we are all lazy. Like we're designed to conserve energy, and so that's hard.
Yeah, and so if you can imagine an organization who actually on their strategic priorities puts like habit mastery. Because if we could help every employee in the company build the habits that they need to get to their next level, or every team, then you get this massive up-leveling.
Yeah, and actually I've been very fortunate in that when I was in, it was at Sprinkler, there was a massive initiative to implement 4 disciplines of execution.
Yep.
That's a real transformative kind of change the way people think, create new habits. And my God, a lot of effort and repetition and engagement and teaching and support and structure and actually really annoying rules. But I think that's the only way you can do it to effect a transformation across an organization. Yeah. And I feel privileged that, I experienced that and I was a part of that. Yeah. And, I'm sure we'll move on to sort of the way forwards, but I've experienced, I totally buy into the new habits are hard. Yes. And you think you've mastered them, and you slip back, and it,
Yeah.
you never
Yeah.
quite master a habit. It's
Exactly. But this is why it's a multiplier. You don't need many multipliers.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we've been dealing with these 5, and like if you could just like keep focused on 5 or fewer and really say we're going to drive this, right? We need to master transformation in the organization, right? We need to create some kind of infrastructure for collaboration. We need to be focused on learning. Actually, all the business priorities will then work themselves out within this system almost by themselves. So how do we do this? So I'm going to focus on, just to make it clear for this, like an individual process. It applies also to teams with a few areas around it. And as you said, implementing it in organizations, it requires some additional infrastructure, but it's still the same kind of approach at heart. And I've got a lot of time for those kind of models for disciplines of execution and other ones. In fact, the model that I use is kind of actually blended in a number of those systems to create something slightly more holistic, but very much on we need to put into place that kind of operating system in the company that allows everything else to happen. So the first way, so there's kind of 5 steps that you can think about. The first one is to find a behavior that matters. Okay, actually find the behavior that really matters. So what are the stakes? Because actually, if it doesn't really matter, it's like you're not going to put the effort in. It's hard. So you've got to pick your battles.
Yeah. We're not gonna change all our bad habits. We've got to pick the one that's going to make the most impact, because it takes effort. It takes effort. So you've got to pick one there. The reward is worth the effort. Exactly.
And like, what's the key one that's going to release everything else? And once you've got one nailed, you can do another one. But far better to nail one or two, perhaps related habits, than try and do something else and do, have 10 that you don't do any of. And so what we did with this client I mentioned earlier on, we talked to stakeholders, talked to him, talked to his boss, and really understood what were the behaviors that were causing concern or that were raising eyebrows. And also we understood, like, what's the stakes? And, when we first started, frankly, he was like, yeah, I love professional development, Richard, really happy to be here. At the end of the first conversation, he was like, oh, you mean my career's on the line? This matters. The urgency is up there. And just to put a brackets around that, how many people never get that warning in organizations? They're just, you're all great, it's great, you're sacked. Yeah, I was going to say, most organizations are the latter, really. It's that helping, I guess it's identifying that moment when you realize that something has to change. And as a leader, you need help. At any stage in your career, you need help to reach that moment when you realize something needs to happen. And as you said, when it's really like that, when it's really a career-limiting behavior, then you're right, the stakes are big, because perhaps if we correct it over the next few months, we don't have to have the expense of getting rid of this person, finding somebody else, hiring them, onboarding them, going through their learning curve before we can get back to where we were. So that is one place it definitely matters for the organization and for the individual, but also for a company. If actually there is a behavior which, in terms of delivering on strategic objectives, in terms of motivating the organization, in terms of creating a different culture that's more innovative or whatever it is, those are behaviors, again, that matter. But the first step is really to help people connect with that. This is something I want, I need, but it's important. Okay, so find a behavior that matters. And then number 2, identify moments of truth. Okay. So this is back. This is the difference between I want to lose weight and I need to stop eating chocolate bars at 4 p.m. with my coffee or whatever it is, or my cup of tea, right? Or I need to stop eating cheese before I go to bed.
So is that the motivation point? It's the finding the moment of truth is suddenly coming to the realization that something needs to change.
Well, it's really the moment. It's like very specific moments in the week where you have a decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got
So
it.
it's really boiling it down. It's not saying like change all your diet. It's like, where are the moments of truth? It's dessert, whatever. I always have double helpings or something. It's like not having a double helping might be the only behavior that matters. That would take me from eating a few too many calories each day to a little bit under, and I might change the curve. So you want to find the 1 or 2 moments of truth where that behavior is going to show up, and where you have a choice to change it. So
it's a way of targeting a little bit. So you might have the behavior to change, but you're identifying specific situations which you can focus on where you can apply that modified behavior rather than trying to apply it across the board across your life.
Exactly.
Hard. Okay, got it.
Exactly. So with one of my executives, it was like, okay, I need to bring my points and deliver my points more concisely and strategically in the board meeting with the investors, because that's a key moment.
Yeah.
If he nails that, everyone is like, wow.
Yeah.
Insightful, clear.
Rather than saying I need to get all my my strategic points across more in key points, more concisely.
Yeah, exactly.
Across everything, just saying no. In this scenario, that's what I'm going to work on first, and then you can expand out from there.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of saying, I need to be a bit more concise or need to be more strategic, it's like, no, in this meeting, I'm really going to get clear about the before and after.
Yeah.
And a moment of truth, it can be like an event, a meeting, it can be a scenario, it can be a person, a specific interaction, a trigger point. What is it where this behavior really comes out? It might be when I'm doing a one-to-one meeting with my team, when I deliver my weekly update to the leadership, when I are doing the employee question and answer session. It's really getting specific. You really want to be able to pinpoint on your calendar almost where it's going to be showing up.
Yeah. All right. Got it.
So moments of truth, really, really important, because it turns that vague idea of, I want to like be more inspirational or something, right? To, I need to inspire these people in these moments for this reason.
This is just a quick interlude before we get back to today's main conversation. To celebrate the launch of the podcast, we're giving away, for the first time ever, a coaching package valued at over $3,000. You can use it yourself, or you can give it to a friend or colleague who wants to multiply their impact. To enter, all you have to do is leave a review of the podcast on iTunes or in your preferred podcast app, and send a screenshot to podcast@xquadrant.com. And do that before 15th of September 2020. If you do miss that deadline, then leave a review before the 15th of October and there'll be a chance to win a smaller coaching package. For all the details, head to xquadrant.com/podcasts. Reviews are the lifeblood of any podcast, and so whether or not you're within the eligibility time, it would still be fantastic if you would leave us a review if you like the podcast or if you see the potential in the future as we continue to refine it, develop it and add to it. Many thanks, and let's get back to that conversation.
The third point is then build a zero effort environment.
Addressing the lazy ones in the room, like me.
Like all of us, yeah, right. So how do you make it, how do you set up your environment to almost make it inevitable that you'll do this?
This is like the chocolate scenario. It's like if I don't buy the chocolate in the first place, if it's not in my room, then I've taken temptation out of the room. And it's far more effort to go and get chocolates when I feel tempted than if I just had it sitting there.
Exactly. Don't buy the chocolate, you can't eat it, right? When you want it, you can go to the shops, but that's effort. And so the default option is, okay, I won't have the chocolate right now. In a meeting, I have a concept called page 2, which is take your meeting template. Slide 1 is weekly meeting, date, name, or whatever. Add a slide 2 in, which is a reminder of some behavior that you want. Now, it might be a team behavior that you want everyone to remember. So the team, you might put literally on the slide 2, let's aim for equal participation from everybody. And that reminder will just get everybody, oh yes, let's just take 10 seconds just to check in with ourselves. Am I likely to speak too much or too little in this meeting?
Oh, I like that one. That's a good one. You see it sometimes also with, cultural values or corporate values, that competition. It's just, it becomes, if you see it often, you get that jog reminder. It just makes it easier rather than you've got to actively remember.
Yeah, and so having some little statement, perhaps something agreed as a team, a behavior, having it come up and perhaps just spending a second on it, rather than just going, oh yeah, and moving on, just ask a question or get people to stop for 10 seconds, or delete a word from the sentence and get them to remember what the missing word is, or just something to kind of get people engaged on that before moving on. If it's something for you as a personal, as a leader, you might even just, use even add a blank slide.
I think one thing I did on this, which I experienced, I went to, I was there, Ashridge, do some courses, and there it was about finding an image which represented sort of what you're trying to change or what you're trying to achieve. And it's, it can be an abstract image, to find, basically creating an anchor, which you pepper all over the place and just, it acts as your prompt and your reminder.
Yeah, exactly. So what I quite like to do on a presentation, if it's for me to remember something, is insert like a blank slide or even just a little animation or even just like a random slide. And you either just skip over it, people go, what was that? Or you go, oh, I've got a blank slide in here, never mind, move on. It's just like when you press next and the slide comes up and it's blank, at least it just kind of triggers you and goes, oh yeah, that's the blank slide. That's because of this. Press next slide. So it takes 1 second, but it's just that internal trigger. So it depends how private, this thing is. If it's something which you want to be very subtle about, then you can do something like that. Or you can put it in your, just read in your diary, that around this meeting, I put in a parallel appointment that pops up a reminder saying, remember to listen more in this meeting, sucker, right? So whatever way you want.
It's that little prompt. Basically, what you're saying is, that you're creating a zero effort environment by making it either difficult for you to do the habit you're trying to break, or easy for you to remember the habit you're trying to form. Yes. So it's the prompt. It's the almost a little friction point which gets you in the right frame of mind. Yeah,
and generally, what you're trying to do is you're trying to make it harder to go to the default position and the easy option.
Yeah.
You're trying to make that less available, less easy. You're trying to remind yourself. You're trying to force yourself sometimes. It's like, how can I force, can I like make a commitment at the start of this meeting that almost forces me to follow through? In that slide 2, can you put a statement? Like, in this meeting, I'm only gonna, I've committed to not just making any decisions myself. You have to make all the decisions, right? And then you've committed to it on slide 2. It makes it a lot easier to follow through in the rest of the meeting.
Okay.
So various techniques there, but building a zero, really giving a consideration to the environment that you're going to create for those moments of truth.
Okay, so find a behavior that matters, moments of truth, zero effort environment.
Yeah.
You said 5, there's 2 more.
Yeah. So the second one is, the fourth one is anticipate war zones.
Okay. All right. So, hang on. Well, that sounds a bit scary.
Well, no, the war zones, I mean, and we've kind of covered it in some ways. War zones are, war zones are really knowing when am I going to be tempted?
Okay.
So you can't always manage your environment. Okay, you can't always manage your environment. So, yeah, taking an example from personal life, let's say, I'll give you one, classic one for me, all you can eat buffets. I just like, that's terrible for me because I'm just chatting to people and talking and helping myself in the buffet. I could pack away so much food without realizing it. That's like a dangerous moment for me. So I'm not going to organize my own all you can eat buffets at home, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you can't help it. You have to go somewhere and there's no all you can eat buffet.
So it's part of the environment you can't control almost. It's like anticipate.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So what are you going to do in that? So perhaps, one of your issues is not flaring up when somebody challenges you personally. You can't stop people from challenging you personally. What are you going to do? And so it's trying to anticipating what's coming up in my diary, where there is a risk, where I'm going to be in a situation where the doer is going to just take his usual path and the planner is going to be annoyed at the end of it. And then think, well, what's my strategy to anticipate that? Perhaps on the buffet example, it's like, okay, I really am going to restrict myself to one plate, and I'm going to announce, and I'm not going to do it straight away. I'm going to wait for an hour before I start. And perhaps I'm going to tell my spouse that before we go, so that I've got somebody to go, whoa, it's not yet 9 p.m.
Yeah, and I think actually using other people to help you navigate Warzones is a good tip. You don't have to do it all on your own.
No, exactly.
You have allies, as a leader in any organization, in both your professional, not just your personal life, but your professional life, you will have allies, and you'll have people who are also maybe motivated for you to effect that transformation you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and so as an executive, if you can't look at your executive team and feel that those people can support you, that is a problem. For me, the end state, or an end state that I love to leave clients with, is executive teams who are supporting each other on their own core behaviors.
Yeah,
they're backing each other up. They're giving each other that trust. That's back to that vulnerability-based trust that we talked about last time. I need to work on this. I know. Okay, and then everyone else is like, yeah, okay, we'll support you. We'll help you with the war zones. We'll point out when you're falling back into the old ways, right? We'll help you on that journey. So that's war zones, right? It's important to kind of anticipate and perhaps look at that every week. Put a little reminder in your diary. What's coming up this week that's going to trip me up? Okay,
good. So last one then. What's the last tool for our way forwards?
So the last one is actively monitoring effort. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. The first one, which I often use with clients, is actually getting other people to observe their behavior and provide them with recommendations, not necessarily judging them on their behavior, but kind of saying, hey, how much have I seen that behavior recently? Just, have I seen it or not? And then, which also helps them learn, them notice your change, but also what recommendations would I give you for next month? So you get some positive input rather than just being judged about how you've not yet delivered all the behaviors that you want to do. But I'm sorry, yeah.
I guess this is about having some kind of continuous feedback, isn't it? It's the same principles as the reason the smartwatches with step counters are actually quite helpful, because it's non-judgmental, but you're able to see, you've got an objective and you can see every day whether or not you've hit it. And that's in it of itself, the fact that you're being measured, especially if you're a high achiever, or you're being observed.
Yes.
We want.
It really focuses you in, right? Because again, it's helping create that zero effort environment. You know that this is it's an important. It's also it makes it matter more.
Yeah.
You know, I'm getting real feedback from people on this behavior. They're looking to see, do I have it in me to change? Yeah, it's like the difference between secretly committing to diet and like putting on social media that you're going to lose 5 kilos in the next 2 months.
Yeah.
And you're going to post your updates every week about what your weight is, right? Suddenly you feel some impetus to focus on that.
And I guess, you know, for some of these tools around sort of transformation and transforming sort of initiatives into habits and long-term change, it's actually worth looking at those kinds of organizations. Those are the weight loss organizations and the health and fitness sort of gyms, all the kind of tricks that they use to try and get you to sign up and stick to it. And, you know, a lot of the things that you've mentioned around sort of zero effort environment, you know, actively monitoring, you know, you can find all those principles in those things. And
exactly.
You know,
yeah, and this is why I've been obsessed about this behavior, because I've seen in corporate settings that we miss this. We have all the strategies and we can't implement them because we haven't got the habits in teams and individuals. And so my coaching, I kind of see it as insights on one hand and then behaviors on the other. You need insights to create new opportunities, possibilities, new ways of looking at the world. Everything can shift in a second when you get a new insight. But then you need behaviors to drive that and actually do something with it.
Yeah.
And so the two really go together. If you just focus on getting new insights, you kind of still stagnate. And if you just focus, you know, with behaviors by themselves, don't really get you there. And then the other part of monitoring effort, it's really a self-evaluation. It's an awareness piece. So insight is, this matters. I need to build this capability, this behavior. But the awareness is in the moment. Am I aware in the moment of the opportunity to use this behavior? And one way to do that is to really do, like, for example, like a daily scoring. So one thing I do with my clients, I get them, if they want to, most of them do, I have in my little app, I get them to score. Did I do my best to do this behavior today? Now, do I do my best sounds a bit weird, weak even, weird, but it connects emotionally. Like, did I actually focus on this today, or did I just ignore it? Like, did I have an opportunity to use this behavior? And did I actually grab hold of that opportunity? So it actually measures your internal engagement. And just by observing it, that engagement level will tend to rise. Just the act of observing.
Hey, Schrödinger.
Well, yeah, but just by observing it.
The act of observation does change how a system behaves.
Yeah, and just if you observe yourself, you'll tend to realize, oh yeah, this is something which perhaps I didn't put my heart in that today. Yeah, it's a bit weird. This is important to me, but yeah, why didn't I really put the effort in? And so, and obviously picks up a thing like, you know, if you're finding that you're only scoring yourself 2 out of 10, then that's the coaching conversation, right? That's what's going on there. You said you wanted to do it. You said it matters, and yet you're not really doing your best. And so we dig a bit deeper. But I think that is another part of the feedback loop as well. So monitoring effort and getting a sense of measuring your own engagement in the process is really important.
Wow. Okay. Loving those. So let me see. Behavior that matters. Identifying the moments in which the behavior matters that you're going to focus on, moments of truth.
Yeah.
Zero effort, because we're all lazy. So it's got to be as easy as possible to do this.
Yeah, hack your environment, right?
Yeah, hack your environment. But then there's external factors. That's your Warzones. So you got to figure out in advance how you'll handle things, the external situations, which you know you're going to come across or expect to come across. And then that monitoring, which is the last point you said. I like all of those. I think if you can I'm going to try and, this is where I'm going to thinking, how do I make that stick in my head? But no, those are super helpful, actually, really helpful. And as you say, you know, it's the multiplication, so it's the impact and multiplier. As you say, it's the insight and the behavior together.
Right.
It's not additional, it's multiplicative.
Yeah, and it's the multiplier, because once you are able to improve your rate of acquiring new habits and behaviors, and once you're able in the organization to get better at that, then it makes everything else easier. It makes everything else faster. And that's why I think it's a multiplier. It's not easy, right? And I stand by this little methodology. It works. I use it repeatedly. It keeps getting results. But it is hard, right? You have to admit it, right? It's hard. That's why we need to really filter by what behaviors really matter, really making sure that we are committed to the outcome that these behaviors imply, making sure all the structures are in place to reinforce that, right? And that's all important, but it is a fantastic lever available for anybody, really. And any CEO, I think, looking at an organization should be really thinking about, how do we master transformation, right? And in a systematic way, how do we actually create the language, again, the culture, and again, I would always probably start at the executive level, right? It's like, if we can't grow new habits as a team, then we shouldn't be telling everybody else that they need to. But often that's what happens, right? Normally the execs are like, we need everyone, you know, we need to transform all these minions out on the front line, right? But actually, do we know how to lead that change ourselves?
Okay, right. So this has been super helpful, and I'm loving this episode. It's a great sort of topic to end on. Final thoughts, or do you want to? We've covered a lot of ground in this series. You know, what do you want to leave us with?
Yeah, well, let's just kind of summarize what those 5 multipliers were. And this has really been a whistle-stop tour, right? We've really tried to kind of set out a bit of the landscape, knowing that in the course of the podcast, we'll do a mixture of things. We'll be talking with CEOs about the way that they multiply impact, the way that they've used some of these levers. And then we'll start to dive into this whole landscape of strategy, leadership, and purpose, and the multiplying levers that we have to create impact. So this has been like setting the main areas of focus. We had eliminating noise, right, which was really around attention and strategy, and really focusing in. We had releasing commitment, which is really about releasing that energy in the organization. So we're not driving people, but we're actually releasing and bringing out that fourfold commitment that we talked about. We talked about accelerating learning, because in our world, the ability to learn faster than the market, faster than our competitors, is really important. And if we have an organization, propagating learning across that organization is a really essential part of that body, right, of that organism, creating that nervous system within a company. We talked about friction and drama, because that does that, you know, there's the collaboration issues, which we often put as soft skills, actually really are a cultural artifact. You know, we often, the systematic things that we have put in place, the communication channels, the language, the management techniques, they have a really big impact on friction and drama at a corporate level. And then this last one, mastering transformation, because, you know, even if you've got a strategy, even if people are committed to the strategy, even if they're learning, even if they're working well together, if they're finding it hard to adopt the new behaviors they need for the new world, it's still not going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that was a lot of ground that we've covered in those episodes.
Yeah, boiling the ocean. We can perhaps go slower on the next ones, but I think it's important to get the big picture, right, and see the potential, right, because these are massive.
Fabulous.
Make a big difference.
Yeah. So I guess if anyone missed any of those episodes, You can find them on our YouTube channel, on the X Quadrant website, or on the subscribe, if you subscribe to this podcast. And the show notes are on our website as well. So do go back and look and review, and if you haven't seen the earlier episodes. Richard, any final thoughts here to close us out on this great series?
Yeah, well, we've been talking about how broad these things are. The X Quadrant Insider is the newsletter that I do, which goes at a weekly pace, right? It'd be slightly more focused each time. So that can be another way of kind of getting more of a drip feed on this. I think these insights go in over time, and they drip into us and become part of how we think. What I would say is leaders go first. And so when we've been talking about behaviors, I'd ask, what's your behavior barrier? Right? What's the one behavior which would make all the difference in you? And that's a question just to really pause on. It might be in your car or wherever you're listening to this, and lots of things going on around you. But rather than going on to the next podcast, I'd perhaps just pause and go, what's the one behavior that if I could shift that would actually do one of these things? It would eliminate noise. It would release more commitment. It would accelerate the learning. It would reduce friction and drama in my organization. And where's the area where, as an executive, you need to focus? Because that's going to change everything.
Yeah, and I guess if you need help figuring it out, because that's not an obvious thing to figure out either in terms of your behavior barrier, there is a certain level of self-awareness and objective self-awareness, which is hard to achieve. So that's where there's a whole ecosystem around you in terms of people that you can just ask. Yeah,
absolutely. And perhaps the final thing is, having reviewed this series, you reach out to us if you've got particular questions or areas you'd like to dig more deeply into in the future, right? This has been setting out, as I said, a bit of the landscape, but there's all sorts of areas in that I think merit a lot of a deeper focus. So love to hear what's been helpful, where we've skipped over things too fast, where we've spent too much time on things. We'd love to get any of that feedback. So do find us on social media or email or on the website and let us know, because as we want to shape this journey on the podcast to really focus on the most helpful things for you as a listener right now.
Thank you very much, Richard. I've really enjoyed these conversations.
Yeah, thanks to Stephanie. Well, that marks the end of our first season, so we can all go and open ourselves a bottle of champagne or eat some cheese that you're not allowed, or whatever it is. And yeah, thanks a lot. It's been a fantastic conversation. Thanks for pushing me and keeping me down the straight and narrow on this. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been fun for me too. Thanks.
Take care. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Now let's talk about you. When you're in a position of top leadership, when you're in the biggest role of your career, who supports you at a deep level as you lead others? Who helps you multiply your impact and get to the next level? Well, this is what we do. If you'd like to know more about our community of extraordinary leaders, visit us at xquadrant.com.